Lions Rock Productions.
This is Jay Moore.
This is Greg Cruz.
This is Bryce Vine.
This is Dexter from The Offspring.
This is Nathan
This
East.
is Sebastian Younger.
This is Daryl Ames.
This is Stuart Copeland.
This is Mick Gillette.
This is Andy Summers.
This is Dr. Bob Greenberg.
This is Gabby Reese.
This is Rob Bell.
Hey, this is John Leon Guerrero.
Hey, and this is Pete A. Turner.
Hey, everybody, this is Roger Clinton, and I am doing the Break It Down show.
Yes.
You're coming, we're coming live to you from beautiful Riviera Village in South Redondo Beach, California.
And now, the Break It Down show with John Leon Guerrero and Pete A. Turner.
Yeah, it's awesome. We have also in the house best-selling author of the Echo In Ramadi book, Scott Huesing.
Hey, Scott.
Good to be here. Good to meet you, Roger.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah,
Good to meet you,
awesome,
man. Great smile, great voice, great eyes.
Thank you.
I'm falling in love, too.
The thing is Roger's got the chops to actually sing people into love, even if it's just for like the next 4 or 5 hours. Like, he can do it.
No, I've heard it. I mean, you're a musician. Very talented.
I'm blessed.
Across the board.
I am blessed. I'm just blessed. I wasn't blessed with being the best. I was certainly blessed, and I do the best I can with what I got, and I've done.
What do you feel like giving, like, as an artist? Like, what do you feel, but you get back, like, the most rewarding thing? Like, could be like some feedback or doing a show, or
no, the most rewarding of all. I'm sort of a mutt in the entertainment industry because I'll do just about anything, but I mean just about anything. Now, reasonably speaking, when I'm on stage, I love live performance, and I haven't been doing enough of that lately, but I'm about to start back again. But when you're on stage, it's like it's so rewarding when I get on stage and I just sort of exhale. I just, I'm home, I'm safe, nothing can bother me, I'm where I belong. And then when you perform and people show their appreciation, you don't have to be the best at anything. You just have to be the best you can be, and you have to give them the best effort that you can every single time, whether there's 2 people out there or whether there's 100,002 people,
Yeah.
And when they show their appreciation for your work and your effort, that's it's indescribable.
Yeah, it's good getting accolades from other celebrities and family and friends, but when you get those total strangers that say, like, Roger, man, thank you for sharing that, and
there's nothing like it.
It's the best.
Yeah,
it's absolutely the best.
There's nothing like it.
So you're a mutt. What breed of dog? 2 combination. Which dogs?
German Shepherd. Has to be German
Ferocious
Shepherd.
attack.
Ferocious, loyal. Very loyal. I'm big on loyalty, commitment, dedication, responsibility. I took a break for several years in a lot of those categories because I wasn't even loyal to myself. I wasn't respectful to myself. Today, I'm proud to say that I am 412 days totally clean and sober, which, Jesus Christ, thanks.
No, I'm proud
I
of
would
you.
have
That's
never in a million years thought, I wouldn't even considered saying it, much less the possibility of being there. I never really thought I needed to be there when actually I needed to be there all along. So I'm making up for lost time, and still realizing now that I still can do what I always did, what I always wanted to do, and I can do it in a different frame of mind now. And it's a good feeling. It's a real good feeling. I mean, I normally would come to a coffee shop with a shot of vodka, up until 412 days ago.
Yeah,
it was. It was ridiculous. I had taken it to because I had quit everything else, and I thought that was enough. I thought that was good. I was a functioning alcoholic because I got up, I worked, I paid my bills, I took care of my son, who I worship, made sure everything was good, and had a nice home down by the water. Have a nice home by the water, and something I work hard for. And but every morning I would get up, and on the average, at least 6 days a week. I would have anywhere from 8 to 10 shots of vodka before noon. And you don't stop drinking at noon. If you're going to start before, you don't stop at that. So it's a whole new lifestyle for me, and it's something I'm getting very comfortable with and very fond of. So,
I was talking to Kim. Kim listens to your pod more than I do.
Hi, Kim.
Yeah, hi, Kim, my wife.
Kim.
But
Hey, Kim.
She was reading this great book. I can't cite the title author, but she's saying like it's easier to quit a bad habit than it is to start a new one. So she's like, I want to start a new habit, and I think that's a huge choice. Is like making a healthy lifestyle choice or doing something. Starting a new habit that's tough. That is challenging. That takes discipline.
Oh, that's a good way to look at it. That's an interesting way to look at it.
Yeah.
It is.
I'll find out what
tough.
the book is and share it with you. But
Well, it is tough.
It makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The work in order to do that, I've never really thought about it that way, from that angle. But the common denominator is, whether it's the angle you just presented or whether it's the angle of trying to stop a bad habit, it's tough work. It's difficult. It's hard, but it's worth it.
You had said that you were making up for lost time, but I don't know that that's true. So I'm going to ask you this.
Okay.
So for those that don't know, you're Roger Clinton, you're Bill Clinton's brother. And we got to say that, not because we need to add the context.
And Hillary's brother-in-law.
And Hillary's brother-in-law. Yeah.
Please get that in.
No, of course. But I want to go further back before Hillary, because you grew up in what really is the classic American home, unfortunately. I mean, a single mom, male role models in your life who weren't always the best. Yeah. And as much as we want that idyllic, two parents, dog, picket fence thing, the reality is it's very common to have a non-traditional home. And there's a lot of stuff that gets put into a kid's closet that doesn't necessarily make you drink, but it doesn't put you in a situation where drinking is less likely.
Right.
Plus, you're like me. You're like, let's go play football, and we don't need no pads. We're just going to tackle each other and get hit on the head a little bit too much, probably. We're going to like some rock and roll. I like shots. And you start adding all these things together into this life that you wouldn't probably trade, but it doesn't take you out of the zone for drinking. Like, you have to go down the path. And some of the people, some people that didn't make it, they reached the end of their path. So I wouldn't call it lost time. I think it's just your time, given everything you've been through and what you've had to reckon with, and the joy. I mean, you bring me joy the second I see you. I'm like, he's here. I'm so excited because I love being in your presence,
Thanks,
so
babe.
I wouldn't call it lost time. I would just call it time spent on other shit. And now we're focused on other things, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I can see that. I can stretch to that. It's because in no way, shape, or form do I have a regret about it.
Right.
I have no regrets,
Yeah.
because I always use the phrase common denominator. I always use my son, who I worship, as the common denominator of why it hasn't been, why I have no regrets and why it hasn't been wasted time.
Yeah.
Because I use that old cliche, if it wasn't for all of that, then this wouldn't be possible. That might be a little cliche, and it might be a little naive, but it is the way I choose to believe.
Yeah.
And it's also what makes it the common denominator, my son, is because, it got really simple. I need to keep things simple. I always believe in my writing, whether I'm writing speeches, stories, treatments, music, whatever, I keep things simple. I think simpler is more powerful across the board. And in my life, it's been true. But my son, keeping it simple, I have two hands. One had a handle of vodka, and one had my son for as long as I can have him, as long as I can be around him and be his father and take care of him, no matter how old he gets. And it really it's very simple. It's a no-brainer. That doesn't mean it's going to be easy because of the disease, because of the craving, because of the obsession, because, of whatever. But if I can have my son or have a bottle of vodka, I'm a pretty smart guy. And even though I've made some crazy decisions in my life, I've made some wonderful ones as well.
What's the difference between you and the guy that wants that decision, but just can't do it because the disease has him. How did you, as far as, I mean, you basically died because of drinking.
I did, yes.
Yeah, so we're looking at a ghost, and a ghost I like, but
Thanks.
what's the difference between you and the person that can't do it? And it's not their fault, but it's like, can you figure out why you were able to turn the corner that last time where you actually got to where you are now?
I know why I did it and how I did it. Basically, again, simply what I just explained. But, I've lost a couple of very good friends recently from addiction and from overdosing and their inability to turn that proverbial corner.
Yeah.
And I wish I could put my finger on it. I'm still in touch with their parents and some of their family members to try to get some kind of idea. There's got to be something there because it's a disease for me too. It's, and it's a craving, it's an obsession, it's all this. And you do have to turn the corner. But I have found in my lifetime, like when I quit doing cocaine, and I did that for most of my life, and I quit like 7 years ago, close to, it's going on 7 years. It was like a switch. I said, okay, now wait a minute. I used to do it all the time and take all kinds of chances when I couldn't afford to, financially couldn't afford to. And now I'm doing it and I can't afford to. And I have my own home. I have several vehicles. I pay my bills. I work. I'm responsible. I'm doing it responsibly in the confines of my own home. And I said, that's fucking insane. That is insane that I'm doing it irresponsibly and now I'm doing it responsibly. And again, there's that common denominator. I'm doing it.
Yeah.
And I need to stop.
How's your son, like, how did he transition from, like, how you were when you were drinking heavily and, like, get past that and then reconnect and how's it? There's a huge family dynamic, we kind of tipped into the beginning, but let's talk about your son and, like, how has that become better?
Well, first off, I'm very proud to say, Scott, that my son, we're best friends and we always have been.
Oh, that's great.
You can be disappointed in your best friend. You can be disappointed in your son. You can be disappointed in your father. I've been a single father for all intents and purposes for the majority of his life. And, he's a smart boy. He's a smart young man. And there's no way that he didn't know. But I don't know if he knew the degree because I didn't know the degree to which I was affected by it because I was still functioning. I was taking him to school every day. I was doing volunteer work at school every day at his schools. I was going to every one of his sporting events. I was going to every one of his practices. I was going to every one of his recitals, everything. I didn't miss anything. So that did nothing but justify, I guess, maybe indirectly or unconsciously, not that I could continue to do it, but it never presented a reason why I shouldn't be doing it since I was able to, go through the motions, so to speak, of life and everything. But inside, I was a flippin' mess. I was a mess. That 12-step, with that one word in the 12-step program about your life being unmanageable. My life was unmanageable. Start something and stop it. Focus on something that I needed to focus on other things instead of. Yeah. But never losing sight of what my son needed. But I didn't take it to the level of what does he really need? He needs his dad to stop all this crap. That's what he needs. And that's what his dad needed. But I didn't see that until I died. My heart stopped. July 25th, 2017. I drank my heart to death, literally. I drank my heart to death. I was out in the middle of
a lot of booze.
Yeah. And blow.
For, like, big, strong guys that, like...
Listen, when my heart started sort of palpitating, and I was going, damn, I know what I need. I need a shot of vodka.
That's a big shot. It's like that shot of cappuccino you're drinking. For listeners, like Roger went up and was like, "I'll just small cappuccino," and it's like from So I Married an Axe Murderer with Mike Myers. He's got like it's like a wine barrel of cappuccino drizzled with about, I don't know, a half a cup of caramel syrup.
It reminds me of a huge bowl of French onion soup almost.
It looks delicious, though.
It is delicious, but I'm glad this is audio and not video. Scott's already told me it's a part of it is going to be video. So.
Yeah, let's get in a little bit to, we sat down and you started, just because you always have gems going, but because of who you are, you know, you have certain choices that you're going to make. Oh, and by the way, your brother's one of the most influential men in history. I mean, really, when we think about it, a president stands out that way. If you're going to rank the presidents in terms of what their influence is, the modern ones are much more influential than the dead ones. I mean, as much as even someone as incredible as Herbert Hoover was, you know, your brother has the ability to do so much more in the modern world because the world is tiny now. We talk about how our lives intersect, Scott and I, all the time, where it's like, do you know this person? No, but we both know this person. And then all of a sudden we just now know, you know, it's crazy. So his influence in your life is ubiquitous. And you'd said before, you're like, there's no way I can avoid politics because I am politics. How does that factor into your recovery? I mean, is that something that you even think about at all? Or is it because it is what you are?
Yeah. You know, what's so funny about this and so representative of your question is I just finished a song that I had started years ago. And as a matter of fact, my band used to perform it. We performed it at Farm Aid in Ames, Iowa, in front of about 100,000 people. And we only had one verse, but it was that important.
Yeah.
And it was called Politics. And I just completed it. I should have brought the lyrics with me, but it's about going through politics and sort of mirroring my life, starting out with politics. And more, it incorporates the uppercase P, politics. But for the most part, it just represents little p, politics, lowercase politics that we all have to deal with every single day. You know, and I'm not talking, you know, regardless of knowing you're assemblyman or you're congressman or senator or whatever, just every day when you wake up and you put your clothes on and you just go through the motions, you have to deal with some type of politics.
I mean, but to be tied into that, like Pete was saying, is, you know, our circles overlap. But then here we're sitting with a guy, and like to think, you know, and I'll talk about like your transition, your recovery, and the healing, and your son being a part of that. And most of us rely on our families, and you've got this family that is on the world stage, and to think like, hey, on Roger's cell phone, like he can swipe and dial Bill Clinton or Hillary Clinton. Like, yeah, I'm like, and we've all got people on our phones like, oh, really? You know that guy? And to the average person listening, or to the guy sitting over in this coffee shop, they're looking over here like, there's no way these three guys know all these people. But these are the circles, and we do it because we want to support each other. And if there was something that I could ever do for Pete, right, or Pete could do for you, we know we're just a phone call away, and we love to share that information. So it's for, I guess, you know, this guy sitting on the other side of the coffee shop is like, how much have they helped you in your healing process? Do you still reach out to them? You like, does President Clinton, your brother Bill, call you and be like, hey, Roger, man, what's going on?
He couldn't be prouder.
That's
As
awesome.
a matter of fact, my boss is Steve Bing, who has been a wonderful support for me in my recovery, which has been tremendously helpful. But he recommended that I text my brother, like, which I used to, but he recommended that I incorporate in my texts. I always do communicate with my brother at least once a week, at least on the phone, and then another couple of times through text. And he said, start incorporating which day it is. Just simply say day 320, day 380.
Like
you know?
it. Yeah.
And my brother, he
I told Scott you were going to cry.
He calls me quite often just to simply tell me how much he loves me and how proud he is of me about turning my life around, as my son does. And, boy, that word pride, that word being proud of me, that's what keeps me going.
Yeah, it's a strong word.
Yeah.
Well, I think what's the reason I asked that
You made me well up too, by the way.
I know. I'm like,
Oh, gosh.
man, it's dusty in here, Roger. And but there's so many people that deal with these pieces of trauma, and me as a veteran, and Pete, that there's times where I don't even talk to my own brother. 2 or 3 months go by, and like maybe we'll text or something. But to think, to have that family support from a man that literally is still on the world stage. I mean, I'm watching him at Aretha's funeral last week.
Pretty
He's sitting
powerful.
back there. It was great.
Yeah, it was powerful.
Great cast out there to support the family through their loss. But to be there, I think average families in America, and I come from a broken family, a divorce, and non-nuclear family, and we still don't have that type of communication. I think it's very dependent on the type of family, and for someone who has so much on their plate, who's always in demand, to be able to make time, because that, as you have to make time to do it.
And I that's such a great point, a great area of discussion, because I would go months without talking to my brother. And I started thinking, I just want my brother back. I would go back to my childhood when we didn't have a father. And when I was little, and he was my best friend. He was my father. He was my brother. He was everything. And Mother did the best she could, and she did a great job at raising the two of us with what we had. But I've always missed my brother. I've always felt like I had to go to him. I felt like that I didn't have my brother, quote unquote. And I couldn't understand why, and I couldn't understand why I couldn't get him back. And now I realize that that's what he wanted all along. He wanted his brother back, and I've given him his brother back. And we've discussed this at length. And it's just a great revelation that that's what I've done. I've given, without knowing, I had taken myself away to a certain degree from my brother, from my son. I've now returned, and they're both very proud and very happy about it. But politics is always going to be politics, at least in my lifetime. There's not going to be any kind of radical change. There might be some radical changes at the top, which we are experiencing now. Very extreme, divisive representation at the top that will run its course. Whatever that length is, it will run its course. We'll snap out of this. But politics is politics, and I have been dealt that hand. I didn't have a choice. When they called me and told me, I'd already been through state, local, and state politics. Yeah. So I was sort of indoctrinated.
Yeah,
you
were indoctrinated really early on. Too,
early on.
To realize, like, hey, well, this is my brother's choosing, and he does this. And I think whatever your career path is in life, I mean, I've felt that. I'm sure Pete's felt it. Is for 24 years as a Marine, 10 deployments, my family's always supported me. They always understood what I did, and I was off, fighting. And then at one point, it was like, well, when are you going to be done with that? When are you coming back? When are you going to be normal? I'm like, well, this is my normal. So
and
your normal is...
And that stuff that y'all two can talk about, and if you've experienced, that fascinates me. That seriously, and I'm not just blowing smoke here. And I can't explain it. I have no idea other than just simple reality and logic and consciousness and appreciation and respect. And what y'all do, the military, should be, it's in the same category as teachers' salaries. You know what I'm saying? About things that should be improved and strengthened. The awareness, the appreciation of what y'all have done. It's mind-boggling, because without y'all and so many others like you, we wouldn't be the great United States of America. We just wouldn't. It's that simple. And the mere fact that you're, in my opinion, so underappreciated and taken for granted in so many areas, it's like, okay, that was their choice. They did it. Boom. You can't let it go like that. As a matter of fact, and here's a little plug for a couple of things. One, which I will be using hopefully to plug what I'm about to plug now, and that is in a short period of time, hopefully, the plan is I'm going to have a podcast, working title, Roger That.
Roger that.
And talk about everything, anything and everything, sort of like what we're doing here on the Break It Down show with Pete. But I've got a television show concept that I think it's brilliant. I've been working on it for about 5 years now, and only in the past year and a half has there been interest shown by networks and so forth. So it's at least getting closer. It's at least moving in the right direction. It's not stagnant. It's not going backward. So that's a good thing. And from what I hear, things move glacially. I keep hearing that word till I'm sick about it, but it moves glacially in the television, in the industry, in the film, television industry. That being said, it's a music concept show that's blue collar. It's raw. It's no bling, no glamour, no instructions, no makeup and wardrobe, no nothing. It's the man, the woman, the boy, the girl that didn't go anywhere really as far as geographically speaking for their dream of music. They have to work, they have to babysit, they have to work in the factory, they have to work in the field, they work a midnight shift, whatever. Then they go home and sleep, they get up, or they get off work, and then their t-shirts, their jeans, and they go plug into an amp, and they play their guitar, or they sing, or they do whatever for the love of the music. My point to all of this is, segue back to what you and Pete do, Scott, is that for sake of conversation, say the network gives me 10 episodes in the first season. There'll be 10 winners. There will be one ultimate winner at the end that is judged sort of like The Voice and like American Idol with social media input and so forth. But there'll be an individual weekly winner. We'll take all of those winners. There'll be an ultimate winner at the end of the season, but we'll take all the individual winners with their songs that they won with. We'll put together a project, we'll download this project, and then we'll send them on a USO tour where they'll perform for the troops.
Very cool.
Yeah, real cool. Something I've never had the honor of doing. But I know so many friends, bands and individual performers that have been on tours, USO tours of some type. They say that it's life-changing for them to go and do something like that. Now, I've gone to so many different countries and performed, and there have been a lot of military people from the surrounding bases and so forth, like in Seoul, Korea, we went several times, and that's always an honor in and of itself. But to go on a specific, just actually a USO tour would have to be the opportunity of a lifetime.
And for guys that have you ever been on the receiving end of one of those?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. It's to see those guys come out and the way they interact with the troops and people in bases, and not necessarily even in combat zones. I mean, Darius Rucker was out in Bahrain, and he's like, he's just hanging out with the guys, and makes himself available, and they kind of leave the pretense at the door, and it's just it's very gratifying for the guys to think that people care like that, and given the opportunity, I'm telling you, we as service members, we appreciate that, because that's what it takes to really put some skin in the game and to connect with people. And Pete's heard me say this 1,000 times. Listeners have heard it. For me, it's all about people, man, and that power of human connection. And it just like Pete said, when you walk through that door, that smile on your face, bright blue eyes, unassuming guy, it's just the authenticity, came through. And I was like, how do you not like this guy? And, I have a pretty good bullshit meter. It's pretty finely calibrated at this stage of the game. And as we were driving over here, I was telling Pete about how I read some some rhetoric on social media about how authenticity is a word that is not something you should subscribe to advance in the workplace, your community. I'm like, I totally
disagree with that.
Yeah, I mean, authenticity is authenticity, and you can sense it, and it does take sometimes 10, 20, 30 years of experience and age, like guys our age, to understand like that guy's legitimate and he cares, and by giving back to the troops or giving of yourself, I think that's part of something that's really strong for you to continue to heal too. And we always talk about that in my circles that overlap a lot with guys that are dealing with substance abuse and alcoholism, guys who suffer from post-traumatic stress. And, as I write about, guys who deal with that disorder are often I compare them to functioning alcoholics, because we go through our lives, we're good officers, we're good Marines, we're good soldiers, we do our jobs, we get awards, but it's there. And we haven't figured out a way to break that pattern of disruptive behavior, to remove that distraction or recognize it so we move forward. And I think by you doing that it's huge. I think if you continue down that path, I mean, you're going to be hearing that word, proud a lot more.
I think so too.
Yeah.
I think so too. I know that I am inside. I know it's making me prouder and prouder inside of myself. And, I'll give you an example of, it's funny that you should incorporate PTSD, because I always just stereotyped PTSD as just for the military. I didn't understand it and didn't realize it. Well, when I got sober, I remember the day that I was being admitted at this this crazy hospital, mental hospital, out in the woods outside of a small town in Connecticut, out in the middle of nowhere. And that's where I had to stay inpatient for 2.5 months before I got to come back home here, and then put myself in an intensive outpatient program at IOP that I just recently graduated after 9 months. But regardless, back to that hospital, I remember it was like at 11 o'clock at night. My brother had driven me there, and after he had flown me from ICU in Iowa, where I was when my heart stopped, then I had to go and stay at Columbia Presbyterian Hospital in Manhattan, because that's where his heart specialist was. And so I stayed there for a week. Didn't really know anything. I was so clouded. But I remember when the psychiatrist was admitting me, he was doing and I'm sitting like where you are. And he's like this. So I've got his profile there. And he's seeing me out of his peripheral. He's just typing away, and he's asking me all these questions. Name, height, weight.
This episode of the Break It Down Show is brought to you by Lions Rock Productions.
That's us.
We publish, evaluate, and develop podcasts just like this one, consult others to build their own, and create associated content and content marketing strategies.
So if you're launching or expanding your social media presence, your business or your personal brand, or if you just want to take your media presence to the next level,
reach out to us on Twitter
at P. Turner
or at JohnLG69
at the Break It Down Show.
There's 1,000 ways to get a hold of us.
Now enjoy the show.
And he's seeing me out of his peripheral. He's just typing away, and he's asking me all these questions. Name, height, weight, age, blah, 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 and all this stuff. It's just whipping through. Like, let's just get this guy admitted, let's go on. And out of the clear blue, now I'm 62, so this happened when I was 61. Out of the clear blue, I'm telling you, it hit me like a ton of bricks. And I was tired, and I was messed up still. I was confused. I was scared. I was embarrassed. I was disappointed. It ran the gamut of emotions and feelings. And I was just sitting there just a shell. And he goes, have you ever been abused? Were you ever physically abused as a child? And I just immediately started crying. I lost it. I lost it like I hadn't lost it in a long time. And I couldn't even speak. And it scared me. I was so scared. But our biological father, he passed when I was, I think, 9. The ages of he was incapacitated basically for the last 2 years of his life, but physically and mentally. But regardless, from the age of about 3 until about 8, he beat me, my brother, my mother, would kick us out of the house. I remember running every time I would hear him. If he did come home, I would hear the garage door or the door. He'd be kicking at it because he couldn't turn the knob. He'd be so drunk. He was a violent alcoholic. And I would run to my room and crawl under the bed because that was the only way he couldn't get me. He couldn't get under the bed after me. And he would try to reach for me and then run to the other side of the bed and reach under, try to grab me and saying, "You little son of a bitch, I hate you, come here, you little coward," call everything in the book. And as my mother was so good at protecting, quote unquote, protecting her 2 boys, she did the best she could. And we never discussed it. We never talked about it. We all shared in it. We all experienced it at the same time. And now fast forward to what I brought this up for was because I have been going through extensive trauma therapy, which is the most painful thing I've ever done in my life, to the point to where I've stopped doing it because I don't think there's an out. I just don't think there's an out. I think there's a change with the realization and the acceptance that you have it, that you've experienced it. But I didn't know PTSD was associated to something like that. I just always thought military whenever I thought.
Yeah, we don't own
PTSD.
it exclusively.
Right.
And,
well, see, I never knew that.
And
so, see, I was a functioning alcoholic, just like you referred to,
yeah,
with PTSD. So it was like not only were they similar, they were simultaneous for me. And now in retrospect, that made it so. And I'm not saying it was more difficult than anybody else because everybody's different, and it's just difficult for everyone. Period.
You can't discriminate and say, my PTS is better than your PTS because I was kicking doors in a Ramadi and seeing dead bodies. You were in a car accident, or you almost drank yourself to death, or did, or you got, you were the victim of, child abuse. So we don't discriminate.
See, to me, I always thought that your experience with PTSD and yours, Pete, would be something that would be so difficult to get over, whereas I would start looking, before I really got into this analysis and this discovery of PTSD on my behalf, on my side, and from my experience, I would always tell my psychiatrist or my psychologist or my counselor or my social worker, I have discussed it with everybody and my family. I always thought, what the hell? I'm 60 years old, for the love of God. I've got a beautiful son. I've had a wonderful life. I work my ass off. I try to mind my own business these days. I try to be a good person above anything else. That happened when I was a little kid. I should be able to get over that. I haven't thought about it for so many years. I haven't discussed it. It's never crossed my mind. How can that be affecting me as an adult to the point to where I would tell these experts, these specialists, I'm tired of feeling like it's a crutch and I'm not even using it. But y'all are using it in your description, in your explanation for ... And I'm thinking, wow, maybe there is something to it. Maybe there really is something to it. But it's been so difficult for me to try to comprehend how in the world something, no matter how traumatic, can happen to you. I'm just now learning about this and accepting it and understanding a lot more how something so traumatic can happen at such an early age that fast forward 50 years later, 55 years later, it is affecting you or coming to the surface and you're having difficulty dealing with it. Whereas seemingly you didn't have any difficulty all your life, when actually you probably were. It was probably one of the reasons, not the reason, but a reason for whatever.
We talk about this a lot too. And I'm probably sure you just made a light bulb go off for me, Roger. There's probably other things throughout my life that those small pieces of trauma, like the divorce, or physical abuse, or something stupid I did that impacted me. But I have this philosophy, and I use a jar of jam analogy, is that throughout your life, and I usually just kind of associated with military and what we did over the course of my career, but these little pieces of trauma, you compartmentalize those, and we in the military do that so we continue to function. Or you as a public figure or as an artist, you compartmentalize those like jam, and you put them in a jar and you stick them in the pantry and you put them on the shelf and you put them on the shelf and you put them on the shelf. But
it's exactly right.
And then to continue to function, you shut the door and you lock it tight. But in everybody's world, eventually the ground shakes a little bit. When that falls off and smashes, you got to deal with that mess.
Yeah.
You got to clean it up. And the way to clean it up the best is not through years of psychotherapy or through pharmaceuticals, or it's connecting with other people that have dealt with it, whether it's veterans, whether it's guys in your community as an artist, and just being able to relate. And that's how you unpack those jars and how you process those tiny pieces of trauma. And I think that you're doing it. I mean, and it's different for everybody else.
And something, the thing that you hit on earlier too, and it's a taken for granted. Not many people, though, take the time to really look at it any further than superficially and on the surface, and that is being in that proverbial fishbowl, being underneath that proverbial microscope. However you want to describe it, it is what it is, and it's the hand I was dealt.
Yeah.
The good outweighs the bad because, and I used to tell my son about this, I used to tell my son when he was a little boy, the good outweighs the bad because, son, you'll be able to see. When I went to school growing up, I learned about Washington and Lincoln and Jefferson and Roosevelt and Kennedy, and you're going to get to learn about those same guys plus Clinton. And so the pride, the history, the historical aspect of being a part of American political history, your family, your heritage, that outweighs any reporter that wants to be demeaning or detrimental in any way or negative, or, you have to take the good with the bad, just like in life. Sometimes it gets to the point to where you have to take a break.
Yeah.
And sometimes the breaks that we choose to take aren't the appropriate breaks. They're not. There are breaks that can be positive, and then there are breaks in the action that are negative. And I took a very negative break, while all the while thinking that, well, if you're not bothering anybody, and if you're not making an idiot of yourself, and if you're staying home, and if you're just working and taking care of whatever you need to take care of, who cares what you're doing to yourself?
Yeah.
You're not affecting anybody else. And that's so screwed up thinking. It's so screwed up thinking. It allows you to perpetuate your problem and your decision that you made, or the break you decided to take in whatever. And so I've had to deal with the hand that was dealt. When my brother became president, or just shortly before, and I think I've shared this with Pete before, but I didn't get that luxury of, quote unquote, luxury of anybody calling me and saying,
Right.
You know something, Mr. Clinton, would you like to be first brother or not? It's not.
We're gonna get T-shirts made, and
You don't have a choice.
What color would you like?
Yeah, you don't have a choice. There is no pay, and there is no rehearsal time for it. You are.
There's a training manual, though, right?
Yeah, somewhere.
It's like your pamphlet that's
Yeah,
outdated.
in theory.
Like, you read this, it's totally useless, but good luck, brother. Yeah.
In theory, there's a pamphlet somewhere.
But, okay, so-
but as a guy, you're not going to read it anyway.
Yeah.
So what did your brother say? Like, hey, brace for impact, because now
Yeah,
I'm
basically.
about to turn the burners up to,
Yeah.
What's closer than danger close?
Basically. And I think the media took that and ran with it. When
Yeah.
you just referred to, that danger close. I think they took the ball and ran with it because, it was easy for them to put 2 and 2 together and come up with 5. The right answer plus a little bit more to make it a little juicy. And I think that the fact that there wasn't much discussion. Now, for a while there was. Initially there was. How are you going to deal with it? What's it like to be the president's brother? Oh, my God.
How many times? Yeah.
How many times? Two major questions.
Exactly.
What's it like to be the president's brother, and can you help so-and-so get out of prison? Those are the two major questions. I don't even know the third most popular. It's so far behind those two. But you have to deal the hand. You have to play the hand that you're dealt. And God bless my mother. God rest her soul. She was the most wonderful human being in the world. Very great example of God shutting a door and opening up a window. Because she died in January of 94, and my son was born in May of 94. So that was the only thing that could have pulled me out of that funk. But she always told me, walk in your brother's light. Don't worry about what they say about the shadow. Wherever there's shadow, there has to be light.
Yeah.
You try to walk in his light. And I tried for the longest time. But it's really difficult when there's so many people that don't want that to happen.
Yeah.
And it's really, it's a revelation that there are people out there that, quite frankly, don't want people to succeed and be happy. For some unknown reason, and I've quit trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
There are people that would rather wake up and spend their time stealing money from other people via the computer, stealing information from people via the computer, going through the media, different facets of the media to try and bring people down, thinking that lifts them up in some crazy way, rather than working hard and promoting yourself and improving yourself. You know, and journalism is almost obsolete.
Yeah.
In my opinion, it's more investigation, and it's whoever can.
It's hard to think we're not evolving in that.
Yeah.
I do think we're regressing in that, and I think the kind of you're talking a little bit about the diversity that we have and we enjoy now too, and we're recording on the eve of September 11th, which I think is important. 17 years since that historic event. How does the political stage and what we're doing in the media and becoming more unified as a nation, what do you think about that? How do you think we've gotten better? Have we gotten worse?
I think that we as a society sometimes focus on materialistic things, superficial things, such as today, for instance. They had 2 unveilings, 2 dedications, whatever you want to classify them. One in New York for the new subway that was reopened, that was destroyed at 9/11. Why is that an event? Why are we paying? Why is there so much money, time, effort, attention paid to something like a subway reopening? Like that's supposed to be symbolic of what? I don't know. But it was destroyed 9/11, and now on 9/11 it's reopened again. Yay! We have spent, there's no telling how much time, money, effort, focus on that materialistic thing. Obviously we haven't needed it. It's been gone for however many years.
A lifetime, generation.
Yeah. And now it's open. Well, in Pennsylvania, they did a beautiful structure that's 93 feet high, I believe. I mean, that's all fine and good, but you don't hear about any trauma therapy. You don't hear about that kind of stuff. It's the events.
The people.
Yeah.
What about the
you
people?
don't hear about the people.
What are the success stories that come out of that trauma?
So many success stories. So many success
there?
stories. And the media has so far to go.
Boy.
And they keep blaming each other, and the left blames the right. And
this is one of the reasons why the podcast medium is great. We had a guest on recently. I won't name the guest, but we were talking about political type things, not about politics, but structure of the government, that kind of thing. And he said, "Well, you lean right," and I said, "Actually, I don't. I don't. I kind of just stand up tall." I love that I can drive 400 miles in any direction, and someone is taking the time to paint lines on a road. We've added more center divides, so we don't have to have as many head-on collisions. That's government, and I'm for that. I'm for, as a society, trying to figure out how to help someone who's got a less advantageous situation. Because we all have $5 for that. And so we have to stop sensationalizing every single possible thing. And we have to sit down and listen. Like, so if I lean right, and Scott, he's a military guy, he must lean right as well. And we're talking to Roger Clinton, well, he must lean left. Well, that's a bunch of bullshit. Because we haven't talked about or disagreed about anything we've talked about here, and if we collected people, to Scott's point of view, and his accurate depiction of what life is about, how you get better is look, you love your kid. I love my kid. He's crazy about his daughter. Like, we're crazy about our kids. We don't want cancer. I want you to get better. I want me to get better. We all want these same things. We might disagree on the means and how to pay for it, but really that stuff's pretty trivial. We can all agree we like to get better. And the podcast medium allows us to have a conversation that I love bringing in these different spheres. I put Scott together with a CIA operative from Iraq at the same time. Those guys never talk on anything else. And so I just, we are getting better because we're getting away from that big, we have to sell ads, sensationalize the president, whoever the president is. You think the next president's going to have it easy? We've made that job impossible. It's
You're
already
going to be part of that, though. That's what's cool. Roger that. Coming up on whatever it is, day 500 for Roger Clinton. And you're going to be part of that.
I
because
am going to be a part of it.
Every time I'm on one of these shows, and I thank Pete for having me up here to co-host again with him, is that there's such a part of the solution, because mainstream media, whether we're talking about veterans issues or 9/11, right on this historic date, is those stories aren't on mainstream media. You've got these pinheads and politicians talking about themselves, and media personalities and celebrities talking about themselves. When's the last time you saw today's hero salute for guys that are still fighting in Afghanistan and Iraq to this day, or success stories of a recipient of the first 9/11 scholarship fund for a New York firefighter that died?
Wish I could
page
tell
36
you
of it.
that
Yeah, you can't.
Wish I could.
So now you're part of the solution. You'll have those people on your show, and they'll be like, Roger that.
Something that is so powerful, what you said, Scott, because in recovery, the key is to be a part of the solution. That's the key in recovery. You have to be a part of the solution, not the problem. And that's what I try to focus on. Let me give you an example. Tomorrow, I am going to, Assemblyman, and I can't pronounce his last name really well, Al Maratucci or Maratucci. Anyway, he's our Assemblyman, or he's running for Assemblyman. I think he is now, and he's running for re-election. But it's the Blue Bus Tour for Gavin Newsom. I don't know Gavin. I do know that my brother knows him and likes him. But I do know that my brother knows and likes a couple of other people that just ran in the primary for governor in the Democratic and Republican primaries. That being said, I don't go to see everybody that just because my brother or sister-in-law, it'd be a full-time job.
Yeah.
If I went to places and appearances, and functions, that just because my brother and sister-in-law know them, hell, they know everybody. So
that's their job, right?
Yeah. But that being said, I'm going to a campaign stop. First one since my sister-in-law first ran against Obama. And only once then. I have tried to stay clear of that, but I've also been restricting my participation and my involvement in the solution by doing that. So I've decided, because they called and invited me, I'm sure it was a mass invitation sent out, a group invitation, whatever. Seemed personal, sounded a little personal as far as emailing goes. But regardless, I signed up and I'm going to go tomorrow for this meet and greet. Why? So I can start getting more involved in the solution. Because wherever there's the problem, the solution is right there close by. Just like if you're in the solution, the problem is close by. You have to stay in the solution or stay in the problem.
Yeah.
But regardless of which one you're in, the antithesis is right there next to you. The opposite is always, the problem is always close to the solution. Solution is always close to the problem. It's whichever one you choose to live in. And I have been staying, by staying out of the solution, I have basically been staying in the problem. I can disguise it all I want by saying, oh, I've been neutral. I've been Switzerland on this. I've just been staying away and minding my own business. Well, therein of itself is the problem. Complacency, lack of loyalty, lack of respect for yourself, for your fellow man, woman, for
And
your
it doesn't have to be a
community,
full-time job for
No.
you either. You know, a lot of people think, well, I need to do more, I need to do this, or I need to do it all the time. Like, no, just do something.
Yeah.
Get off your couch.
Yeah.
Get out there. Give up a Saturday. Give up yourself. Put some
Yeah.
skin in the game, as I always say. And maybe it's one rally. Maybe it's one event. Maybe it's one fundraiser to help whatever your cause is. But do something. Don't just talk about it.
And this is important to me. It's a commitment that I've set, just like
Yeah.
I've been setting commitments and challenges in recovery.
Yeah.
And it's important to set these commitments and these challenges, not just in recovery, but in life. But I was unable to do that for the longest
That's
time.
the German Shepherd in you.
That's
so
the
the
German
question
Shepherd.
that remains is, what is the other dog of the mutt? What's the other part of the breed?
You know something? I think. Well, I do have. I have.
Hold on, before he answers, Pete, what would you say?
What's a dog breed that's just super stoked to see you and just wags its fucking
Lab.
tail? like
Black
crazy?
Lab.
That's
Black
you
Lab.
right
And that's
there.
who. That's
Yeah.
what I had before my
Shepherd
German
Lab.
Shepherd. A Black
Lab Shepherd. So what's your answer? What would you say?
Lab Shepherd.
Yeah, Lab Shepherd.
Yeah.
I'd
All right.
agree. Yeah. Super loyal, super friendly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that this commitment tomorrow to go meet this man, I don't know who I'm going to vote for. I really don't. I don't even know if I'm going to. I know I'm going to vote.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm going to vote Democrat. I mean, I'm not forced to do that.
Yeah.
You know, I'm going to vote for the person that I think is the best. And in order to vote for somebody, I need to know something about them. And I've been voting just to vote.
Yeah.
Just blindly, without even knowing. Tomorrow I'm going to find out. I'm going to start by finding out a little bit of information on these guys, seeing where they stand, because I have my own ways of looking at things and my own views and opinions, and I'm very conservative in a lot of my views. I wish, and I told my brother this many years ago, but it's, as usual, I sometimes think outside the box, and I think very extremely sometimes. And sometimes that's not to my advantage. And sometimes it's not a logical or a proper thing or appropriate thing to suggest. But sometimes I think, by God, sometimes if you think too much, you overthink, and just do it.
Well,
And
look, if I check the box on Republican or Democrat every time I went, and this primary in California, where we're sitting in California here in SoCal, was exhaustive for me because there were so many candidates.
So many.
And you know, some people say, oh, you're going to vote for the veteran, the guy who's running. I'm like, no, because there was a whole lot of crazy on
Yeah.
the ballot this year.
yeah,
I'm like,
there
I
was a
cannot-
lot of crazy.
And, you know, not a lot of experience. So,
Yeah.
you know, you really have to
And
do
how
your
many
research to do it right.
judgeships are getting to be more and more important, not just Supreme Court, but federal court,
Yeah.
district courts, stuff
Oh,
like that.
especially in this
And
state
guess
of
what? And I asked my brother about, to say one more thing about what I was referring to. I tried to get my brother. I suggested that he abolish the Democrat and Republican Party, the two-party system, not abolish the parties themselves, but abolish the two-party system.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't matter what anybody thinks.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter how much money you've got. If you're not a Democrat or a Republican, you ain't gonna have the top spot. Period.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't care how.
And the Democrats and
It's different.
Republicans chase each other's tail. Like, wait.
Yeah.
Now the Democrats are the party of family and values and everything. Like, what? It goes crazy.
We
And-
got to get back to that, you know, being more American and less Republican
Oh my
Democrat.
God.
We got to
How
get there,
simple.
man.
Simple
And it shouldn't
how
take.
powerful. And now we're back to the simplicity of doing
All right.
things.
Got to.
We're going to keep going, and we.
I know.
We
I'd
have
love
a
to.
schedule because this is what Roger does. So let me just say this: I'm going to
We'll
help.
just
Roger.
bring him with us. He can co-host on the other
Totally.
two podcasts we're going to do.
You
The
come on.
Coco.
I can bring this. I
podcast.
can cocoa.
You can
We'll get
co-coach.
Roger a Camelback and fill it full of cappuccino. We'll keep him going all day.
This has been great, y'all. What a
Yeah.
wonderful day. What
It's
a
been
beautiful
amazing.
place
It's
to
wonderful.
start a
You
day.
and I are going to work on Roger that together, and I want to make this official. Can Scott Huesing be our first guest that we book?
Absolutely.
Get out
Are
of
you
here.
kidding me?
Get out of here.
Are you
It's a
kidding
high
me?
five
Best-selling
going on.
author of Echo In Ramadi, one of the first guests ever,
man.
the first book.
What a
Much
great
love,
guest.
brother.
And what
Much
a great
love.
friend, man.
Yeah. No, this is what's great about it. I love combining people. Scott knows this. I love combining people together and taking a minute to tell them how much I love them and how much they would benefit from doing something with each other, even if it's just knowing that the other one exists. It's just such a wonderful thing, and the podcast allows me to do it. And there's so many things I want to talk to you about.
That premise right there.
Yeah.
Why you do what you do.
Yeah.
Why you do what you do with your show, with the Break It Down show. It doesn't matter what's discussed.
Yeah.
The premise alone should stand for everything. Why you do what you do.
Yeah.
Because what if everybody did that? Would that be crazy
Yeah.
good?
What if the
my
politicians I reach
Yeah.
out to said, "Yeah, I'd love to come sit on your show and talk," instead of ignore it? Like, why would you ignore someone who wants to humanize you? But so hopefully we'll get more of that out of our politicians, so they actually can be someone. We go, yeah, I heard that guy talk. I disagree with how he wants to do it, but I know he's a good person. You taught me that when you told me the stories of your brother growing up and how he was your dad, your best friend, your brother. And I'm like, how in the world can I be so judgmental of a guy that has that in his heart?
I think the same thing when I catch myself talking about mainly more so Republicans than
Sure.
Democrats, because all my life I have been left leaning until the last several years when I have been, like you said, standing upright, standing straight up, not leaning either direction.
Yeah.
Having different ideas that maybe fall on one side or the other, but I'm still standing straight up.
Convince me, but be convincible.
Yeah.
All right.
All right. Thanks,
We're done.
Pete. Thanks, Scott.
Hey, my pleasure.
What a great day, man.
O is our opinion. L is all the lies that we have to hear. I is their intentions. T is no truth. I is how we see. Then S, it's all the same in politics. It's just the same in